Chapter 1. The Man in the Shadows. I never believed in fate until the night I met him. It was a Tuesday. Unremarkable, cold, the kind of November evening that made the city feel lonelier than it actually was. I'd just finished my shift at the bakery, my hands still dusted with flour, my feet aching in worn sneakers. The streets were slick with rain, reflecting the neon signs of closed shops and distant headlights. I pulled my jacket tighter and started the familiar walk home through the alley behind 5th Street. That's when I saw him. He sat hunched against the brick wall near the dumpster, his broad shoulders draped in a tattered black coat, his face hidden beneath the shadow of a hood. Most people would have walked past without a second glance. Most people would have quickened their pace, avoided eye contact, pretended not to see. But I'd never been most people. "Hey," I called softly, stopping a few feet away. "You okay?" He didn't move, didn't look up. For a moment I thought maybe he was asleep, or worse. Then his head tilted slightly, just enough for me to catch a glimpse of sharp cheekbones and a jaw carved from stone. "I'm fine." His voice was low, rough like gravel, but there was something else beneath it, something that didn't match the torn coat or the dirty hands resting on his knees. Control. "You don't look fine," I said, crouching down so we were closer to eye level. "When's the last time you ate?" Silence. I sighed, reaching into my bag and pulling out the sandwich I'd wrapped up before leaving work. Ham and Swiss on sourdough, simple but better than nothing. "Here, take it." He finally looked at me then, and I swear the air shifted. His eyes were dark, so dark they seemed endless, like staring into a void that could swallow you whole. But it wasn't just the color. It was the weight behind them, the intensity, the way they pinned me in place without him saying a single word. He studied me like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve, his gaze moving from my face to the sandwich in my outstretched hand. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "Probably not," I admitted, smiling despite the strange tension coiling in my chest. "But neither should you. So we're even." His lips twitched, just barely, but it was enough to make my heart skip. He took the sandwich. "Thank you," he said, his voice softer now, almost vulnerable. I stood, brushing off my knees. "No problem. I work at the bakery around the corner. If you're still here tomorrow, I'll bring you something else." I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked away, feeling his gaze burn into my back with every step. The next night, he was there again. And the night after that. For 2 weeks, I brought him food. Sometimes it was leftover pastries, other times a full meal I'd made at home. We didn't talk much. He wasn't the chatty type, but there was something about those brief encounters that felt significant, like we were both holding our breath, waiting for something neither of us could name. He never told me his name. I never asked, but I started to notice things, the way his hands were too clean for someone living on the streets. The expensive watch hidden beneath his frayed sleeve, the faint scent of cologne that clung to him even through the grime. And his voice, God, his voice. It wasn't the voice of someone broken. It was the voice of someone who commanded rooms, who made decisions that changed lives. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was romanticizing a stranger because my life was boring and he was, well, he was magnetic in a way I couldn't explain. But then came the night everything changed. I arrived at the alley later than usual, juggling a container of soup and a bag of bread. The rain had started again, drumming against the pavement in a steady rhythm. I expected to find him in his usual spot, hood up, eyes downcast. Instead, he was standing, and he wasn't alone. 3 men surrounded him, their voices low and threatening. I couldn't make out the words, but the tension was palpable, crackling through the air like static. One of them shoved him backward and my stomach dropped. "Hey," I shouted before I could stop myself, rushing forward. "Leave him alone." All 4 heads turned toward me. The 3 strangers looked annoyed, but the man, the one I'd been feeding for weeks, looked horrified. "Run," he said, his voice sharp and commanding in a way I'd never heard before. Now, but I didn't run. I couldn't. My feet were rooted to the ground, my pulse hammering in my ears. One of the men laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "You brought a little friend, boss? Didn't know you were into strays. Boss?" The word hit me like a slap. The man I'd thought was homeless stepped forward, and suddenly everything about him changed. His posture straightened, his shoulders squared, and the air around him seemed to thicken with authority. He moved with lethal grace, closing the distance between himself and the man who'd spoken in 2 strides. "Touch her," he said, his voice deadly calm. "And I'll bury you where no one will ever find you." The man paled. I didn't mean, get out of my sight." They scattered like roaches, disappearing into the shadows without another word. And then it was just the 2 of us. He turned to me slowly, and for the first time I saw him clearly. Not the homeless man, not the stranger in the alley, but whoever, whatever he truly was. "You shouldn't have come here tonight," he said, his jaw tight. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He stepped closer, so close I could feel the heat radiating off him, see the dangerous glint in those endless dark eyes. "My name is Dominic Valente," he said quietly, each word deliberate. "And I'm the man who owns this city," my breath caught. The name was familiar, whispered in fearful tones, splashed across headlines about organized crime and unsolved murders. Dominic Valente, the ghost, the king of the underworld. And I'd been feeding him soup. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Why didn't you tell me?" He reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of wet hair from my face with surprising gentleness. "Because," he murmured, his gaze holding mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. "For 2 weeks, you were the only person in this godforsaken city who looked at me like I was human." The rain fell harder. The city noise faded, and in that moment I knew, whatever this was, whatever had started between us in that alley, it was already too late to walk away. "Go home, Arya," he said softly, stepping back. "And don't come back here, ever." But even as he said it, even as he turned away and disappeared into the darkness, I knew I wouldn't listen, because Dominic Valente had just become the most dangerous thing in my world, and I was already falling. Chapter 2. The gilded cage. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, Dominic Valente, standing in the rain like some dark angel, his voice echoing through my mind with that lethal calm. "I'm the man who owns this city." I wanted to believe it was a joke, a sick prank, but the look in his eyes, the way those men had cowered before him, that wasn't fake. That was power. Real, terrifying, undeniable power. And I'd been feeding him soup like he was just another lost soul. By morning, I'd convinced myself to forget about him, to pretend those 2 weeks never happened. I'd go to work, live my quiet life, and never look back at that alley again. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The bakery was busier than usual that morning. Mrs. Chen wanted 3 dozen croissants for her book club. A corporate order came in for a last-minute office party. I barely had time to think, which should have been a blessing. But then the bell above the door chimed, and the entire room seemed to shift. He walked in like he owned the place, because I realized with a sinking feeling, he probably did. Dominic Valente looked nothing like the man from the alley. Gone was the tattered coat, replaced by a perfectly tailored black suit that hugged his broad shoulders and tapered at his waist. His dark hair was swept back, still damp from a shower, and his face, God, his face, was devastating in the daylight. Sharp jaw, full lips, and those eyes that seemed to see straight through me. Every conversation in the bakery died. Customers stared. My co-worker Jenny actually gasped, but Dominic's gaze never left mine. "Arya," he said, his voice carrying across the room like a command. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Mr. Valente." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "We need to talk. I'm working." "Not anymore." He turned to my manager, who'd frozen behind the register like a deer in headlights. "She's done for the day." Yes, sir," my manager stammered. "Of course. Whatever you need," I wanted to argue, to tell him he couldn't just walk in here and upend my life. But the truth was, he could. He just had. "Outside," Dominic said quietly, his gaze returning to me. Please. That last word, soft, almost hesitant, was what made me move. A sleek black car idled at the curb, its windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. A driver stood beside it, his expression blank, his suit immaculate. This wasn't just wealth. This was dynasty. Get in, Dominic said, holding the door open. Why should I? Because 3 different people followed you home last night. Because your landlord received a very generous offer to sell your building this morning. Because every second you stand here arguing with me, you're in more danger than you can possibly understand. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? His expression darkened. You were seen with me. That means you're a target now, so you can get in this car and let me protect you. Or you can walk away and spend the rest of your very short life looking over your shoulder. That's not a choice. No, he agreed quietly. It's not. I should have run. Should have screamed. Should have done anything except climb into that car. But when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see a monster. I saw something else. Something desperate and fierce and terrifyingly genuine. So I got in. The drive was silent. Dominic sat beside me, his presence overwhelming in the confined space. He smelled like expensive cologne and danger, and I couldn't stop my traitorous heart from racing every time his arm brushed against mine. Where are we going? I finally asked. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. His lips curved slightly. You ask a lot of questions for someone whose life I just saved. You didn't save my life. You endangered it by sitting in that alley every night. I know. The admission was quiet, raw. Believe me, Arya, I know. We pulled through iron gates that opened automatically, revealing a sprawling estate that looked like something out of a movie. Manicured lawns, marble fountains, a mansion that seemed to stretch endlessly into the gray sky. This was his world, and I was an ant stepping into it. Inside, the house was even more intimidating. Vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. But it felt cold, empty, like a museum rather than a home. Dominic led me through endless hallways until we reached a study lined with books and dominated by a massive desk. He gestured to a leather chair. Sit. I'd rather stand. Arya. My name on his lips sent a shiver down my spine. Please. I sat. He moved to pour 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter, handing one to me before leaning against the desk. This close, I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his jaw. I need you to understand something, he said quietly. The world I live in, it's not forgiving. It's not kind, and it sure as hell doesn't give second chances. Then why drag me into it? I didn't want to. His voice cracked slightly. Christ, Arya, the last thing I wanted was for you to get caught up in this. But you kept coming back, night after night, smiling at me like I was worth something. You are worth something. No. He set his glass down with a sharp click. I'm a killer. A criminal. I've done things that would make you sick. I am not a good man. Then why were you sitting in that alley pretending to be homeless? The question hung between us, heavy and charged. Dominic's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his features before he locked it down. Because sometimes, he said quietly, I need to remember what it feels like to be invisible, to be nothing, to not carry the weight of an empire built on blood. My breath caught. He stepped closer, so close I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze. You looked at me like I was human, Arya. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How dangerous? Dangerous how? His hand came up, his knuckles brushing my cheek with devastating gentleness. Because now, he murmured, his voice dropping to something dark and possessive, I can't let you go. Before I could respond, the door burst open. A man in a suit stormed in, his face pale. Boss, we have a problem. Constantine knows about the girl. Dominic's entire demeanor changed. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by cold, lethal authority. Get her to the safe room, now. What's happening? I demanded, standing. Dominic's gaze met mine, and for the first time I saw fear in those dark eyes. War, he said simply. And you just became the most valuable piece on the board. Chapter 3. The Truth Behind the Throne. The safe room was less a room and more a fortress. Concrete walls. Steel door, no windows. A single light fixture casting harsh shadows across the sparse furniture. A bed, a chair, a small table. It felt like a cell, and I hated it immediately. "You can't keep me here," I said, spinning to face the guard who'd escorted me down 3 flights of stairs and through corridors that seemed to twist like a labyrinth. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with kind eyes that didn't match the gun holstered at his hip. "Boss's orders, ma'am. It's for your protection." "Protection from what?" "From people who'd hurt you to get to him." The door closed with a heavy thud, and I was alone. I paced the small space, my mind racing. Constantine. That name had been spoken with fear, urgency. Whoever he was dangerous enough to make Dominic Valente, a man who commanded an empire, afraid, and somehow I'd become leverage. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time felt warped in that windowless room. I sat on the bed, then stood. Sat again. My thoughts kept circling back to Dominic, to the way he'd touched my face, to the raw vulnerability in his voice when he'd said, "I can't let you go." This was insane. I barely knew him. 2 weeks of feeding a stranger sandwiches didn't make us anything. Didn't give him the right to lock me up like some damsel in a tower. But beneath my anger, something else simmered. Something I didn't want to name. Because the truth was, when Dominic had looked at me in that study, I'd felt it too. That pull. That magnetic, terrifying connection that made no logical sense but existed anyway. The door opened. I jumped to my feet, expecting the guard. Instead, Dominic filled the doorway, his suit jacket gone, his white shirt rolled to the elbows. Blood spattered his forearm, dark, fresh. "Are you hurt?" The question left my lips before I could stop it. His gaze snapped to mine, something unreadable flickering in those dark eyes. "No. Then whose blood is that?" "Someone who made a mistake." His voice was flat, emotionless. This was the mobster. The killer. Not the man who'd accepted my soup with quiet gratitude. I should have been terrified. Should have recoiled. But instead I stepped closer. What happened out there? Dominic exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. "Constantine sent men to test our defenses. They're dead now. The message is clear." "What message?" "That he's coming for me. And he'll use you to do it." "Why me?" My voice cracked. "I'm nobody. You're not nobody." He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands gripping my shoulders with barely restrained intensity. "Not to me. Not anymore." My breath hitched. This close, I could see the exhaustion etched into his features, the weight he carried in every line of his body. "Tell me the truth," I whispered. "Why were you really in that alley?" His jaw clenched. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then quietly, "My father built this empire with blood and fear. He taught me that power is everything, that weakness gets you killed. I took over when I was 23, and I've spent the last 8 years doing exactly what he taught me. Expanding territory, eliminating threats, becoming the monster everyone already believed I was." He released me, stepping back, his hands curling into fists at his sides. But 6 months ago, I woke up and realized I couldn't remember the last time I felt anything except rage or emptiness. So I started escaping, putting on old clothes, sitting in that alley where no one knew my name, where I could just exist. And then I showed up, I said softly. And then you showed up. His gaze met mine, raw and unguarded. "You treated me like I mattered, like I was worth saving. And he stopped, his throat working. "I started looking forward to seeing you. To those few minutes where I could pretend I was someone different, someone better." My heart ached. "Dominic, I should have stayed away from you. Should have disappeared the moment I realized what you were starting to mean to me. But I'm a selfish bastard, Arya. And I wanted just a little more time before I destroyed you. You haven't destroyed me. Not yet." His voice turned bitter. "But I will. That's what I do. I ruin everything I touch." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. But the blood on his arm, the concrete walls surrounding us, the reality of his world, It all screamed that he might be right. So what happens now? I asked. Now you stay here until Constantine is dealt with. And then he looked at me for a long moment, something desperate and dangerous swirling in his eyes. Then you go back to your life and forget you ever met me. What if I don't want to forget? The question hung between us, charged and impossible. Dominic moved before I could process it, his hand cupping my jaw, tilting my face up to his. His thumb brushed my lower lip, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except feel the heat radiating off him. If you had any sense, he murmured, his voice rough, you'd run from me as fast and far as you could. I've never been very sensible. His lips curved slightly. I've noticed. We stood there, suspended in that moment, his hand on my face, his body close enough that I could feel his heartbeat, his gaze holding mine with an intensity that made me ache. Then his phone buzzed. He pulled back abruptly, his expression hardening as he read the message. What is it? I asked. Constantine wants a meeting. His voice was ice. He's offering a trade. What kind of trade? Dominic's gaze returned to me, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. You, he said quietly. For peace, the room tilted. You're not seriously considering... No. The word was absolute. Final. Over my dead body. Dominic. I'll burn this entire city to the ground before I let him touch you, Arya. Do you understand me? I will wage war. I will sacrifice everything. But I will not give you up. The fierce possessiveness in his voice should have scared me. Should have sent me running. Instead, it made something inside me crack wide open. Why? I whispered. Why does it matter so much? He stared at me, his jaw tight, emotions warring across his features. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear. Because you're the only good thing I've had in 8 years, and I'm not strong enough to let that go. Before I could respond, he was gone. The door closing behind him with a finality that echoed through my chest, and I was alone again, my heart pounding. His words replaying in my mind. You're the only good thing I've had in 8 years. God help me. I was falling for a man who could destroy me, and I didn't think I could stop. Chapter 4. Shattered Illusions. I spent the night in that concrete room, sleep coming in fitful bursts filled with dark eyes and blood-stained hands. By morning, I'd made a decision. I needed answers. Real ones. Not the fragments Dominic had given me, but the whole truth about who he was, what he'd done, and why Constantine wanted him dead. When the young guard brought breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee that was surprisingly good, I smiled at him. What's your name? He hesitated. Marco, ma'am. Marco, how long have you worked for Dominic? 3 years. Is he as dangerous as everyone says? Marco's expression shifted. Respect, loyalty, and something that looked almost like affection. Boss is the most dangerous man in this city, but he's also the most honorable. He takes care of his people, protects what's his, and he's never gone back on his word. Even if keeping that word costs him everything, especially then. The answer settled something in my chest, even as it raised 1,000 new questions. Can you tell me about Constantine? Marco's face darkened. Konstantin Volkov, Russian mob, came to the city 5 years ago trying to muscle in on Boss's territory. They've been at war ever since. Quiet mostly, but vicious when it flares up. Why does he want Dominic dead? Because Boss controls the ports, the trade routes, the politicians. Because he's the only thing standing between Constantine and complete domination of the city. Marco paused, and because 2 years ago Boss killed Constantine's brother, my stomach dropped. Why? Because his brother kidnapped and tortured one of our men's daughters. She was 16. Marco's voice went cold. Boss found her, brought her home, and then he made sure Alexei Volkov died slowly. Very slowly. I set down my coffee, my hand shaking slightly. This was the reality of Dominic's world. Violence, revenge, lines drawn in blood. And now Constantine wants payback, I said quietly. Now Constantine wants to hurt Boss the way Boss hurt him. And you, Marco met my gaze. You're the first person Boss has cared about in years. which makes you the perfect target. Hours later, the door opened again. This time it wasn't Dominic. It was a woman, mid-40s, elegant in a black pantsuit, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a severe bun. She looked like she could run a corporation or order a hit with equal efficiency. "Aria Bennett," she said, her voice crisp. "I'm Sofia Romano, Mr. Valente's second-in-command," I stood. "Is he okay?" Something flickered in her eyes, surprise maybe or approval. "He's managing the situation. But I'm here because he asked me to give you this." She held out a folder. Thick, manila, worn at the edges. What is it? The truth. Everything you want to know about Dominic Valente, his empire, and the war you found yourself in the middle of. Sophia's expression softened slightly. He wanted you to have all the facts before you decide what to do next. My heart hammered. Decide what? Whether to stay or go. He's arranged safe passage out of the city if you want it. New identity, money, protection until Constantine is dealt with. You can walk away right now and he won't stop you. And if I stay, then you're part of this, fully, with all the danger and darkness that entails. She paused. He wants you to choose freely, Aria, without guilt or obligation. That's why he's not here to influence you. She left the folder on the table and walked to the door. For what it's worth, Sophia said, glancing back. I've worked for Dominic Valente for 7 years. I've seen him kill without hesitation, manipulate without remorse, and command with absolute authority. But I've never seen him care about someone the way he cares about you. Whatever you decide, don't doubt that. Then she was gone. I stared at the folder for a full minute before opening it. Inside were documents, photos, news clippings, a complete dossier on Dominic's life. Born, Dominic Alessandro Valente. Only son of Lorenzo Valente, head of the Valente crime family. Age 12. Mother killed in rival attack. Father becomes increasingly ruthless. Age 18. First confirmed kill. Defensive territory, age 23. Takes over empire after father's assassination. Expands operations. Consolidates power. The photos were damning. Dominic at crime scenes. Dominic shaking hands with corrupt politicians. Dominic walking out of federal court after charges were mysteriously dropped. But there were other photos too. Dominic at a children's hospital groundbreaking. One he'd funded anonymously. Dominic distributing supplies after a hurricane. Receipts for scholarships, rehab programs, women's shelters, all traced back to shell companies he controlled. He was a contradiction. A monster who saved lives, a killer who protected the innocent, a man who'd built his empire on blood, but used that power to help people the system had abandoned. The last document in the folder was a handwritten note. His handwriting, bold, decisive strokes. Aria, I won't lie to you. I won't pretend to be something I'm not. Every word in this file is true. I am dangerous. I have killed. I will kill again to protect what's mine. But I need you to know. You never have to be afraid of me. Whatever darkness lives in me, it will never touch you. I swear it on my life. If you choose to leave, I'll make sure you're safe. If you choose to stay, then I'm asking you to walk into hell with me, and I'm promising you that I will burn it all down before I let it take you from me. The choice is yours. Always. My hands trembled as I set the note down. This was insane. I'd known him for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of soup and sandwiches and late-night conversations where he'd been more honest with me than he'd probably been with anyone in years. 2 weeks wasn't enough to upend your entire life. To step into a world of violence and danger and impossible choices. Except it wasn't really about time, was it? It was about the way he'd looked at me in that alley, like I was the only light in his darkness. The way his voice had cracked when he'd admitted he couldn't let me go. The way my heart had recognized something in him that my mind couldn't explain. I thought about my life before this. The small apartment, the bakery shifts, the predictable, safe routine that had felt less like living and more like surviving. I thought about Dominic, the vulnerability in his eyes, the possessive fierceness in his voice, the way he'd offered me freedom even though it clearly cost him everything to do so. And I realized I'd already made my choice. I was just terrified to admit it. The door opened. Dominic stood there, his expression guarded, his body tense like he was bracing for a blow. "I read everything," I said quietly. And I stood, closing the distance between us until we were inches apart. "And I think you're right. I should run as far and fast as I can." Pain flashed across his features. "Arya." But I've never been very good at doing what I should. I reached up, my fingers brushing his jaw. "So I'm staying." His eyes widened. "You can't. You don't understand what you're—" "I understand that someone's trying to kill you. I understand that your world is brutal and unforgiving. I understand that being with you could destroy me." My voice steadied, but I also understand that I haven't felt this alive in years. And I'm not ready to give that up. Not yet. This isn't a fairy tale, Arya. I can't promise you a happy ending. I'm not asking for one. I'm asking for the truth, for honesty, for you to let me in instead of keeping me locked in a concrete room. Something shifted in his expression. Hope, fear, and raw need colliding. "If you stay," he said roughly, "I can't be gentle with this. I can't pretend I'm not obsessed with keeping you safe, with keeping you mine. Then don't." He stared at me for a heartbeat longer. Then his control shattered. His hands came up, cupping my face, and he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, consuming, a claiming that left no room for doubt. I gasped against his mouth and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, could only feel. When he finally pulled back, we were both shaking. "You're mine now," he said fiercely. "Say it." "I'm yours, and I will protect you with everything I have, even if it means going to war, even if it means sacrificing this empire. Do you understand?" "Yes." He pressed his forehead to mine, his breath ragged. "Then God help us both, because I'm never letting you go." Outside, gunfire erupted. Dominic's entire body went rigid. He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door. "What's happening?" I demanded. His expression was lethal. Constantine just made his move. And as alarms blared through the mansion, I realized my choice had just become irrevocable. There was no going back now. Chapter 5. War at the Gates. The mansion exploded into chaos. Dominic's hand was iron around my wrist as he pulled me through corridors I didn't recognize, his other hand on his phone, barking orders in rapid-fire Italian. Gunfire echoed from somewhere above us. Sharp cracks that made my heart slam against my ribs. "How many?" He snapped into the phone, a pause. Then his jaw clenched. "Hold the east wing. No one gets through. I don't care what it takes." He ended the call, his gaze cutting to me. "Can you run?" "Yes." "Good, because we're about to." We burst through a door into what looked like a garage, but instead of cars, there were weapons. Racks of guns, boxes of ammunition, tactical gear organized with military precision. Men in black moved with practiced efficiency, loading magazines, checking equipment. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress preparing for war. Marco appeared from the chaos, handing Dominic a gun and a spare magazine. "North entrance is compromised. They're pushing hard. Casualties? 3 wounded. No deaths yet. Keep it that way." Dominic turned to me, his expression shifting from commander to something almost vulnerable. "Arya, I need you to trust me." "Can you do that?" "Yes." He took my face in his hands, his thumb brushing my cheek. "Sophia's going to take you to the tunnels. There's a safe house on the other side of the city. You'll wait there until this is over." "No." The word came out stronger than I expected. "I'm not leaving you." "This isn't a discussion. You're right." "It's not." I grabbed his wrist, holding his gaze. "You gave me a choice, Dominic. I chose you. That means I'm not running while you're in danger." Fury, and something like pride, warred in his expression. "You stubborn—" An explosion rocked the building. Plaster rained from the ceiling. Someone shouted a warning. Dominic's decision was instant. He pulled me against him, shielding my body with his as debris fell around us. When the dust cleared, his eyes were savage. "Fine. But you stay with me. You don't leave my sight." "Understood." "Understood." He grabbed a second gun from the rack, checking it with practiced ease before handing it to me. "Do you know how to use this?" "I've been to a shooting range. Good enough. Safety's here. Point. Shoot. Don't hesitate." His voice dropped. And if anyone who isn't one of my men gets close to you, you put them down. I don't care who they are. I took the gun. Its weight foreign and terrifying in my hands. Stay behind me, Dominic ordered. And then we were moving again. The mansion was a war zone. We moved through smoke and shadows, Dominic leading with lethal grace. Twice men appeared from side corridors, Constantine's men, their intentions written in the way they raised their weapons. Twice Dominic fired with cold precision, and they dropped before I could even process the threat. He didn't hesitate. Didn't flinch. This was who he was in his element, death incarnate, moving through violence like it was a dance he'd perfected years ago. We reached the main hall, and my breath caught. The grand room I'd admired yesterday was destroyed. Bullet holes pocked the marble walls. The chandelier had crashed to the floor, crystal scattered like deadly snow. And bodies, God, there were bodies, lay motionless on the Persian rugs. Don't look, Dominic said quietly, positioning himself between me and the carnage. Just keep moving, but I couldn't not look. Couldn't unsee the reality of his world painted in blood and broken glass. Boss. Sophia appeared from a side room, her suit jacket torn, a smear of blood on her temple. They're trying to breach the study. If they get to the files, they won't. Dominic's voice was absolute. Take Arya to the secondary wall behind you. I didn't think. My body moved on instinct, raising the gun Dominic had given me. A man emerged from the smoke, weapon raised, his expression cold and focused. On Dominic. On killing him. I squeezed the trigger. The recoil jolted through my arms. The sound was deafening, and the man crumpled. Time seemed to stop. I stared at what I'd done. At the body. At the gun in my shaking hands. I'd just killed someone. Arya. Dominic's hands were on my face, forcing me to look at him instead of the body. Listen to me. You did what you had to do. He was going to kill me. You saved my life. Do you hear me? I nodded, numb. Look at me. Not him. Me. His voice was gentle despite the chaos raging around us. You're okay. We're okay. But I wasn't sure if that was true anymore. We made it to the study. Dominic's inner sanctum. He locked the reinforced door behind us, moving immediately to a hidden panel in the wall. It swung open to reveal a room I hadn't known existed. Monitors showing security feeds, weapons, a desk covered in maps and documents. This is your command center, I said, my voice hollow. Yes. He worked quickly, pulling up feeds that showed the battle raging through his home. They're trying to draw me out. Make me expose myself. Why? Because Constantine's not here. His voice was grim. This is a distraction. Understanding dawned, cold and terrible. He's going after something else. Someone else. Dominic's hands stilled on the keyboard. He's going after my sister. I stared at him. You have a sister? Isabella. She's 22, in college in Boston. I've kept her away from all of this. Kept her safe, anonymous, protected. His voice cracked. And I just got a message. They have her. The devastation on his face broke something in me. We'll get her back, I said fiercely. He looked at me, something raw and desperate in his eyes. He's offering a trade. Isabella for you. He wants to meet at the docks in 2 hours. The world tilted. Then we go. Arya, she's your sister, Dominic. Your family. We're not leaving her with him. He'll kill you. Maybe. Or maybe we find a way to save her and survive. I moved closer, taking his hands. You told me you'd burn this city down to protect me. Well, I'd walk into hell to protect the people you love, because they matter to you, which means they matter to me. He pulled me against him, his arms crushing me to his chest, his face buried in my hair. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. He pulled back just enough to kiss me, fierce and possessive and edged with fear. When we broke apart, his expression had shifted. The vulnerability was gone, replaced by the cold, calculating Mafia boss. Then we end this tonight, he said quietly. Constantine wants war? He's about to get one he'll never forget. He turned to Sophia, who'd been guarding the door. Call everyone. Every soldier, every ally, everyone who owes me a favor. We're going to the docks. And if it's a trap? Sophia asked. Dominic's smile was lethal. Then we make sure we're the ones who survive it. He looked at me, his dark eyes holding mine with terrifying intensity. This is your last chance to walk away, Arya. After tonight, there's no going back. You'll be marked as mine, tied to me forever. Is that really what you want? I thought about my old life, the safety of it, the predictability. Then I thought about the man standing before me, broken and dangerous and fiercely protective, offering me not salvation, but partnership in his darkness. Yes, I said. It's what I want. Then stay close. He handed me a vest, Kevlar, heavy and real, and pray we're both still alive by dawn. As we prepared to leave, to walk into whatever trap Constantine had set, one thought echoed through my mind. I'd chosen this. Chosen him, and I was about to find out if love could survive in a world built on violence, or if it would destroy us both. Chapter 6. Blood in the Water. The docks at midnight were a graveyard of rusted metal and forgotten dreams. We arrived in a convoy, 3 black SUVs filled with Dominic's most trusted men. The vehicles stopped at the edge of the pier, headlights cutting through the darkness like accusatory fingers. Beyond, the water stretched black and endless, broken only by the distant lights of container ships and the skeletal silhouettes of cranes. This was where empires were built and destroyed, where deals were made in shadows and bodies disappeared beneath the waves, and somewhere in this darkness, Constantine waited. Dominic killed the engine, his jaw tight as he scanned the area through the windshield. He's here. I can feel it. Where's Isabella? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. We'll find out. He turned to me, his expression softening slightly despite the tension radiating through his body. Last chance, Arya, you can stay in the car. You should stay in the car. We've had this conversation, and I need to have it again. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb brushing my cheek with devastating gentleness. If things go wrong, if this goes to hell, I need you to run. Don't look back. Don't try to save me. Just run. I'm not leaving you. Arya, you can't ask me to make that promise, Dominic, because we both know I won't keep it. Frustration and something like awe flickered in his eyes. You're going to be the death of me, you know that? Or your salvation. Haven't decided yet. Despite everything, his lips curved slightly. Then he kissed me, hard and claiming, like he was memorizing the taste of me in case it was the last time. When he pulled back, the Mafia boss had returned. Stay behind me. Stay armed, and if I give you an order, you follow it without question. This isn't a negotiation. Fine. We exited the vehicles. The night air was cold, sharp with salt and oil and something metallic that might have been blood or might have been my imagination. Dominic's men formed a protective perimeter, weapons drawn but held low, professional, controlled, waiting. Valente, a voice echoed across the docks, accented and mocking. I was beginning to think you wouldn't come, that you'd choose your pride over your baby sister. From the shadows between 2 shipping containers they emerged. Konstantin Volkov was nothing like I'd expected. Mid-50s, silver-haired, dressed in an expensive suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. He looked like a businessman, not a monster. But his eyes, cold, flat, dead, told the real story. Beside him, held by 2 men with guns pressed to her ribs, was a young woman. Dark hair, terrified eyes, blood on her lip, Isabella. Dominic's entire body went rigid. Let her go, Constantine. Of course. After we discussed terms. Constantine smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. You killed my brother, Dominic. Tortured him for days before ending his life. Surely you didn't think there wouldn't be consequences. Your brother kidnapped and brutalized a 16-year-old girl. He got what he deserved. Justice is a matter of perspective. Constantine's gaze shifted to me, and ice flooded my veins. And perspective has brought me to your little girlfriend. What was her name again? Arya? Don't. Dominic's voice was death. Don't even look at her. Oh, but I must. She's exquisite. I can see why you're so... attached. Constantine took a step forward. Here's my offer. Your sister's life for hers. One woman for another. Perfectly fair. Nothing about this is fair. Life rarely is. Constantine gestured, and one of his men pressed the gun harder against Isabella's temple. She whimpered. "You have 30 seconds to decide. Your sister or your lover. Choose." Time crystallized. I could feel Dominic vibrating with controlled rage beside me, could see the calculations running through his mind. He was trying to find a way to save everyone, to outmaneuver Constantine, to win, but some situations didn't have winning moves. "Take me," I said, stepping forward before Dominic could stop me. "No." His hand shot out, gripping my arm. "Absolutely not." "Dominic, look at her. She's terrified. She's your sister. You can't— I won't trade your life for hers. I won't do it. You don't have a choice." I turned to face him fully, holding his devastated gaze. "She's innocent. I chose this. I walked into your world knowing the risks, but she didn't choose any of this. You kept her safe, kept her away from all of it. You can't let her die because of me. I can't let you die at all." His voice cracked. "Arya, please, don't ask me to do this. I'm not asking. I'm telling you." I reached up, cupping his face. "Save your sister. End this war. And then—" My voice wavered. "Then come find me. However long it takes. Whatever you have to do. Come find me. I'll burn his entire organization to the ground. I'm counting on it." "Arya, time's up," Constantine called. "What's it going to be, Valente? Blood or love?" Dominic stared at me, emotions warring across his face. Rage, fear, love, desperation. Then, so quietly only I could hear, "I'm sorry." Before I could process what he meant, everything happened at once. Dominic spun, raising his gun toward Constantine. "Now!" he shouted. The shipping containers exploded with movement. More of Dominic's men, dozens of them, hidden in the shadows, waiting for his signal. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes lighting the darkness like deadly fireworks. Constantine's men returned fire. Isabella screamed, and Dominic was moving, pulling me down behind a concrete barrier as bullets tore through the air where we'd been standing. "You set a trap," I gasped. He wasn't the only one who could play games. Dominic's expression was savage. "I was never going to let him take you. Never." The battle raged around us. Constantine's forces were outnumbered but fierce, fighting with the desperation of men who knew they wouldn't survive the night. Dominic's men moved with military precision, cutting down threats, advancing steadily. "Stay here," Dominic ordered. "Don't move until I come back." "Where are you going?" "To get my sister." He was gone before I could protest, disappearing into the chaos with deadly grace. I crouched behind the barrier, the gun he'd given me clutched in both hands, my heart pounding so hard I thought my ribs might crack. The sounds were overwhelming, screaming, gunfire, the wet impact of bullets finding flesh. This was war. Real, brutal, unforgiving. And Dominic was somewhere in the middle of it. Minutes passed like hours. The gunfire started to slow, Constantine's men falling one by one. Dominic's forces were winning, pushing the enemy back toward the water. Then I heard it. A voice close. Too close. "There you are." I spun. Constantine stood 5 feet away, his suit torn, blood staining his collar. But he was smiling, that terrible, cold smile, and the gun in his hand was pointed directly at my chest. "Did you really think your lover could outsmart me?" he asked softly. "That I wouldn't have a contingency plan?" My gun started to rise, but he moved faster, kicking it from my hands. It skittered across the concrete, impossibly far. "Now," Constantine said, stepping closer. "Let's discuss what happens to women who cost me everything." I backed up, my mind racing. No weapon, no escape route. "No, Constantine!" Dominic's voice cut through the night, lethal and commanding. Constantine turned, and that split second of distraction was all I needed. I grabbed a piece of broken rebar from the ground and swung with everything I had. It connected with his temple with a sickening crack. Constantine stumbled, his gun dropping. And Dominic was there, his own weapon raised, his expression carved from stone. "Game over," Dominic said quietly. He pulled the trigger. Constantine fell, his eyes wide with shock, blood pooling beneath him. His lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear. Then he went still. Silence descended, broken only by the lap of water against the pier and the distant wail of sirens. Dominic lowered his gun slowly, his chest heaving. Then his gaze found mine, and everything else disappeared. Arya. I ran to him. His arms closed around me, crushing me against his chest, and I could feel him shaking. Or maybe that was me. Maybe it was both of us. "You're okay," he murmured into my hair. "You're okay." "Thank God. Isabella?" I managed. "Safe. Sophia has her." We stood there in the wreckage, holding each other while the world burned around us. And I realized this was love in Dominic's world. Not gentle, not easy, but fierce and desperate and willing to destroy everything else to survive. "We need to go," he said finally, pulling back to look at me. "Police will be here soon. My people will handle cleanup, but we can't be here when they arrive." "Okay." He took my hand, lacing our fingers together. "Are you ready?" I looked at the body, at the blood, at the evidence of violence that would never fully wash away. Then I looked at Dominic, at the man who'd risked everything for his sister, who'd chosen to fight rather than surrender me, who'd built a trap to save everyone he loved. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." We walked away from the docks together, leaving the past behind, but the future waiting for us was anything but certain. Chapter 7. Unraveling. The safe house was nothing like Dominic's mansion. It was smaller, older, a renovated brownstone in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. But it was secure, hidden, and most importantly, it was ours, at least for now. Isabella sat on the worn leather couch, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders despite the warmth of the room. She looked so young, so fragile, with those same dark eyes as her brother, but none of his hardness. Not yet, anyway. Dominic knelt before her, his hands gentle on her knees, speaking in low Italian. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the emotion, guilt, relief, protective fury barely contained. Sophia stood near the window, phone pressed to her ear, coordinating the cleanup, managing the aftermath. She'd been doing this for years, I realized. This was just another night in their world. But it wasn't just another night for me. I couldn't stop seeing Constantine's face as he fell. Couldn't stop feeling the recoil of the gun when I'd shot that man in the mansion. Couldn't shake the weight of realizing that I'd killed someone, that I'd taken a life, and some part of me was okay with it, because he would have killed Dominic, and I couldn't let that happen. What did that make me? "Arya," I turned. Dominic had left Isabella's side and now stood before me, his expression concerned. "You're shaking." "Am I?" I looked down at my hands. He was right. "Come here." He led me to a side room, a bedroom, sparsely furnished but clean. The moment the door closed, my composure cracked. "I killed someone," I whispered. "I aimed a gun at a person and pulled the trigger and he died. Because of me." "Yes." Dominic didn't sugarcoat it. Didn't try to make it easier. "You did. To save my life. Does it ever get easier?" I looked up at him. "The killing?" His jaw clenched. "No, and if it does, you've lost something vital. Something human." He took my hands, his grip warm and grounding. "But here's what you need to understand. Tonight, you had a choice between your morals and my life. You chose my life, and I will never ask you to do that again. You can't promise that. Not in your world. Then maybe we need to change my world." He pulled me against him, and I felt his heartbeat, steady and strong. "I've spent 8 years building an empire on fear and blood. Maybe it's time I tried building something different. Can you do that? Can someone like you? I don't know." His honesty was brutal. "But I'm willing to try. For you, for Isabella, for the chance at something that isn't stained with death." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe that love could transform monsters into men, that we could somehow find peace in the wreckage. But I'd seen too much tonight to trust in fairy tales. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we disappear for a while. Let things settle. Constantine's organization will fracture without him. They'll be too busy fighting each other for power to come after us. And after that?" "After that?" He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheek. "We figure out how to live. Together." The promise should have comforted me. Instead, it felt fragile, like glass about to shatter. 3 days passed in that safe house. 3 days of watching Dominic try to be both the ruthless boss managing his empire from a distance and the protective brother hovering over Isabella. 3 days of Sophia coming and going with reports of territory secured, enemies neutralized, threats eliminated. 3 days of me wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Isabella and I had formed an uneasy bond. She was brilliant, studying pre-law at Harvard, planning to become a prosecutor. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. He kept me away from all of it, she told me on the second night, her voice soft. I knew what our family was, but Dominic made sure I never had to see it. Never had to be part of it. He loves you very much. I know. She looked at me with those penetrating dark eyes. He loves you too. I can see it in the way he looks at you, like you're the only real thing in a world of illusions. I'm not sure that's love. Maybe it's obsession. Maybe it's both. Isabella smiled sadly. Our father taught Dominic that love was weakness, that caring about someone made you vulnerable. So for years he locked that part of himself away, and then you showed up and broke it open. I didn't mean to. The best things never are intentional. She paused. But you should know. Being loved by a man like my brother is dangerous. Not because he'll hurt you, but because he'll burn the world down to keep you safe. And that kind of devotion has a price. What price? Your freedom. Your innocence. The version of yourself you were before you met him. Her gaze was knowing. You'll never be the same, Arya. He's already changed you. And he'll keep changing you until you either break or become something new. Something harder. The words haunted me long after she'd gone to bed. On the 4th morning, I woke to find Dominic's side of the bed empty. I found him in the study, staring at a laptop screen. His expression carved from granite. The blue light made him look ghostly, inhuman. What is it? I asked. He turned, and I saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he'd been carrying alone while I slept. Antonio Ricci wants a meeting. Who's Antonio Ricci? Head of one of the other families. We've had an understanding for years. I stay out of his territory. He stays out of mine. Dominic's voice was grim. But Constantine's death has created a power vacuum, and Ricci wants to know where I stand. Where do you stand? That's what I've been trying to figure out. He closed the laptop, scrubbing a hand over his face. I could consolidate power, take over Constantine's operations, become even stronger than before. Or I could step back, start dismantling the empire, give territories to other families, get out of the violent side of the business, focus on legitimate enterprises. He looked at me. Walk away from all of it. My heart stuttered. Could you really do that? I don't know. I've never tried. He stood, moving to the window. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. My father would have called it weakness, betrayal of everything he built. Your father isn't here. No, he's not. Dominic turned back to me. So I'm asking you, what do you think I should do? The question was a trap. I knew it immediately. Whatever I said would shape not just his decision, but our entire future together. If I said consolidate, I'd be accepting his world fully, becoming complicit in the violence, the crime, the darkness. But we'd be safe, protected by power. If I said walk away, I'd be asking him to abandon everything he'd built, everything he was, and there was no guarantee we'd survive without the Empire's protection. I can't make this choice for you, I said finally. I'm not asking you to make it. I'm asking what you want. I want you alive. I want Isabella safe. My voice cracked. I want a future where we're not constantly running from ghosts or fighting wars or wondering if tomorrow is the day it all comes crashing down. That's not really an option in my world. Arya. Then maybe we need to find a different world. He stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Okay. I'll meet with Ricci. Tell him I'm out. Dividing territories, stepping back, going legitimate. His jaw set. It'll take time. There will be pushback. Some of my men won't understand. And there will be a period where we're vulnerable while I transition power. But if that's what you want, if that's what you need to stay with me, I'll do it. He closed the distance between us, taking my hands. I'll give up the Empire, all of it. For you. The declaration should have felt romantic, sweeping, the ultimate sacrifice. Instead, it felt like a noose tightening around both our necks. Dominic, I whispered. What if you resent me for it? What if you give up everything, and then realize you can't live without it? Then we'll figure it out. His grip tightened. Together, I wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that love could conquer the darkness in his blood, the violence in his DNA. But deep down, I knew the truth. You couldn't build a future on sacrifices that big. Eventually, someone would want repayment, and the cost would be devastating. When's the meeting with Ricci? I asked. Tonight. Then let's get through it. One step at a time. He kissed my forehead, gentle and heartbreaking. One step at a time. But as I watched him walk away to prepare, one thought echoed through my mind. We were standing on the edge of a cliff, and I had no idea if we'd learn to fly or simply fall. Chapter 8. The Price of Freedom. The restaurant was elegant in that understated way that screamed old money. Crystal chandeliers dimmed to create intimate lighting. Mahogany panels that had probably witnessed a century of secrets. Waiters who moved like well-trained ghosts. Antonio Ricci had chosen the location. Neutral territory. Public enough to discourage violence. Private enough for honest conversation. I sat beside Dominic in the corner booth, feeling profoundly out of place in the dress Sophia had procured. Midnight blue silk that probably cost more than my monthly rent used to. Dominic's hand rested on my thigh beneath the table, a possessive gesture that should have annoyed me but instead felt grounding. Across from us, Antonio Ricci studied me with open curiosity. He was older than Dominic by at least 20 years, silver threading through his dark hair, lines carved deep around his eyes. But there was nothing soft about him. He radiated the same dangerous authority as Dominic, the same sense that violence was always an option, just currently leashed. So this is the woman who brought down Konstantin Volkov, Ricci said, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. I expected someone more intimidating. She doesn't need to be intimidating, Dominic said quietly. She has me for that. Ricci's smile widened. Indeed. Though I must say, Dominic, I never thought I'd see the day when you brought a woman to a business meeting. Your father would be spinning in his grave. My father's opinion stopped mattering the day he got himself killed through arrogance. Dominic's tone was ice. Now, you wanted to discuss Konstantin's territory? Among other things. Ricci leaned back, swirling the wine in his glass. Word on the street is you're considering retirement. Is that true? I felt Dominic tense beside me. I'm considering a change in business model. Less enforcement, more investment. Legitimate operations. Legitimate. Ricci said the word like it tasted foul. You realize what you're suggesting is impossible. You can't just walk away from this life, Dominic. The moment you show weakness, someone will move on your territory. Your people will scatter. Everything you've built will crumble. Unless I transfer power strategically. Give up territory voluntarily to families I trust, in exchange for protection agreements. So you want us to shield your withdrawal? Ricci set down his glass. What's in it for me? The docks. Full access, no tariffs, for 5 years. The offer clearly surprised Ricci. The docks were one of Dominic's most valuable assets. Control over them meant control over half the illegal trade in the city. That's generous. Too generous. Ricci's eyes narrowed. What's the catch? No catch. I want out. I want protection while I transition. And I want guarantees that my family... He squeezed my thigh slightly. Remains untouchable. Your family. Ricci looked at me again, and this time there was something calculating in his gaze. You mean the girl who's convinced you to abandon your empire? Careful, Dominic said softly. Very careful. I mean no offense. I'm simply stating facts. Ricci leaned forward. You've been in this life since you were a child, Dominic. It's in your blood, your DNA. Do you really think you can just walk away? That you can live a normal life with her and be satisfied? I don't need normal. I just need different. Different. Ricci shook his head. Let me tell you what different looks like. You give up your power, your empire, your purpose. And for a while, maybe it's enough. Maybe you play house with your girlfriend, convince yourself you're happy. But eventually, and it will happen, you'll wake up one morning and realize you've become nothing. A shell of who you were, and you'll resent her for it. That won't happen. It always happens. Ricci's voice turned somber. I watched 3 men try to leave this life for love. One hung himself within a year. One drank himself to death. And one went back to the life and left the woman broken in his wake. This world doesn't let go easily, Dominic. And you're fooling yourself if you think you're stronger than it is. The words settled over the table like a suffocating blanket. I felt sick. Because some part of me knew Ricci was right. I'd seen the way Dominic moved through violence. Natural, fluid, like it was coded into his very being. Could someone like that really change? Could I ask him to? I'll take my chances, Dominic said finally. Then you're a fool. Ricci stood, buttoning his suit jacket. But you're a fool I've always respected. So here's my counteroffer. I'll take the docs. I'll provide protection for your withdrawal. But I want one additional guarantee. What guarantee? Ricci looked at me. If you change your mind, if 6 months or a year from now you realize you've made a mistake, you come to me first. You give me the opportunity to bring you back in as a partner rather than watching you burn as you try to reclaim power through violence. I won't change my mind. Then, you have nothing to lose by agreeing, Dominic was silent for a long moment. Then, fine. Deal. They shook hands, a gesture that felt like a funeral rite for the life Dominic was leaving behind. After Ricci left, we sat in silence, the restaurant emptying around us. He's wrong, I said finally, but my voice lacked conviction, is he? Dominic turned to look at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes was devastating. Because sometimes I wake up and wonder the same thing. Wonder if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. Dominic, do you know what I was doing when I was 25? He asked quietly. I was executing a rival family's lieutenant in a warehouse while his wife screamed for mercy. And I felt nothing. Not guilt, not remorse, nothing. Just cold calculation about how this death would benefit my position. I said nothing, couldn't speak past the lump in my throat. And now I lie awake at night terrified that something will happen to you, that I won't be fast enough or strong enough to protect you, that this empire I'm trying to dismantle will come back and take you from me. He took my hand, his grip almost desperate. You've made me feel things I haven't felt since before my mother died. And I don't know if that's salvation or destruction. It's both, I whispered. Love always is. Then how do we survive it? I don't know. My eyes burned with unshed tears. But I know we can't build a life on what-ifs and fears. We have to decide, are we doing this? Really doing this? Or are we just delaying the inevitable? He stared at me for a heartbeat. 2. Then he pulled me against him, his lips finding mine in a kiss that tasted like desperation and promise and goodbye all at once. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. I choose you, he whispered. Empire or no empire, violence or peace, I choose you. And I choose you. The words were a vow, a prayer, a plea to the universe to let us have this, just this, despite everything we'd done and everything we'd become. But as we left the restaurant and drove through the city streets, past the territories he was giving up, the power he was surrendering, I couldn't shake Ricci's warning. This world doesn't let go easily, and I was terrified he was right. We got back to the safe house near midnight. Isabella had already gone to bed. Sophia was finishing security checks, her efficient presence somehow comforting. Dominic pulled me toward the bedroom, and suddenly I knew what was about to happen. What needed to happen. This wasn't going to be gentle or romantic. This was going to be raw and desperate. 2 people trying to prove that love could be stronger than the darkness threatening to swallow us whole. He backed me against the door the moment it closed, his hands framing my face, his eyes burning with intensity. I need you, he said roughly. Right now, I need to feel something real. Then take me, I whispered. And he did. His kiss was consuming, his hands urgent as they found zippers and buttons, stripping away barriers until there was nothing between us but heat and need and the desperate ache of 2 people trying to become one. He lifted me, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me to the bed. Every touch was deliberate, possessive, like he was trying to memorize me, to burn this moment into his memory in case it was all we'd ever have. And when he finally entered me, when we moved together in that ancient rhythm, It wasn't just physical. It was emotional surrender. Two damaged people giving each other everything. All the broken pieces, all the darkness, all the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, we could survive this. I love you, he gasped against my neck as we moved together. God help me, I love you. I love you too, I breathed. Always. The climax hit like a lightning strike. Intense, overwhelming, leaving us both shaking in its aftermath. We lay tangled together, sweat slicked and breathless. His hand splayed possessively across my stomach. Whatever happens, he murmured. Whatever comes next. This was real. We were real. We are real, I corrected. Present tense, not past. He kissed my shoulder. Present tense. But even as I drifted toward sleep in his arms, one thought echoed through my exhausted mind. The hardest test was still ahead, and I wasn't sure either of us was ready for it. Chapter 9. When the past returns. Woke to the sound of breaking glass. For one disorienting moment, I thought I was dreaming, that the violence of the past week had bled into my subconscious. Then Dominic was moving, his body going from relaxed to lethal in seconds, reaching for the gun he kept in the nightstand. Stay here, he ordered, his voice low and commanding. Lock the door behind me. Dominic. But he was already gone, moving through the darkness with practiced silence. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands, my heart slamming against my ribs. Should I call the police, Sophia? Did Dominic's world even work that way? More sounds from downstairs. Shouting. A thud that made the floorboards shake. Then, horrifyingly, silence. I counted 30 seconds. A minute? 2. The door opened. Dominic stood there, and my relief lasted exactly 1 second before I saw his expression. Get dressed, he said, his voice hollow. We need to leave, now. What happened? Just do it, Arya, please. I'd never heard him sound like that, defeated, broken. I threw on jeans and a sweater, my hands fumbling with zippers. When I emerged, Sophia was in the hallway, her gun drawn, her expression grim. Isabella stood beside her, pale but composed. What's going on? I demanded. Downstairs, Dominic said tightly. You need to see. The living room looked like a war zone, furniture overturned. Blood, so much blood, pooling on the hardwood. And in the center of it all, a man tied to a chair, his face battered, one eye swollen shut. But it was the woman standing beside him that made my world tilt. She was beautiful, devastatingly so. Long dark hair, Mediterranean features, wearing an expensive coat that probably cost more than my car. And she was holding a gun with the casual competence of someone who'd done this many times before. Hello, Dominic, she said, her accent distinctly Italian. Did you miss me? Dominic's entire body had gone rigid. Gianna, you remember? How sweet. She gestured to the beaten man. I brought you a present. One of Constantine's lieutenants. I've been tracking him for weeks, and imagine my surprise when I discovered he'd been planning to finish what his boss started. Why are you here? Dominic's voice was dangerous. Because I heard a rumor. A disturbing rumor that my husband, was planning to abandon his empire for some American girl he'd known for 3 weeks. Gianna's gaze cut to me, and the hatred in it was palpable. And I came to see if it could possibly be true. The room spun. Husband? Oh, he didn't tell you? Gianna's smile was cruel. How disappointing. Yes, sweetheart. Dominic and I have been married for 7 years. It was arranged by our families, a merger of power. Very romantic. I looked at Dominic, waiting for him to deny it. To say it was a lie, a manipulation, anything, he said nothing. Dominic. My voice cracked. Tell me she's lying. I can't. The admission was quiet, devastating. Because she's not. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. I staggered back and Sophia caught my arm, steadying me. You're married, I whispered. This entire time, you were married. It's not like that. Then what is it like? I was screaming now. Months of fear and stress and impossible choices exploding out of me. You made me fall in love with you. You asked me to give up everything, to accept your world, to trust you with my life. And you were married? The marriage is in name only. Dominic took a step toward me and I held up a hand, stopping him. Gianna and I haven't lived together in 5 years. We maintain appearances for the families, but there's nothing between us. No love, no relationship, nothing. Except legal vows. Gianna interjected smoothly, and the small matter of Catholic tradition that makes divorce complicated. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded, because I knew you'd react exactly like this, that you'd run, and his voice broke. I couldn't lose you. So you lied instead? I never lied. You never asked if I was married? That's not the same as telling the truth. Tears burned my cheeks now. Did any of it matter? Was any of what we had real? It was all real. He tried to move closer again, and again I stepped back. Arya, please, listen to me. The marriage is political. It always has been. What you and I have, that's real. That's the only thing that's ever been real. How can I believe anything you say? I looked at Gianna, who was watching our exchange with obvious satisfaction. Did you know? About me? I heard rumors, Gianna admitted. My family keeps me informed of Dominic's indiscretions. But you seemed different. Important enough that he was willing to dismantle his empire. She tilted her head. I had to see what made you so special. And now that you've seen? Now I'm not impressed. Her voice turned cold. You're pretty, I suppose? Young. Naive enough to believe a man like Dominic could change. But you're also weak. You'll never survive in his world. I survived Constantine. Constantine was an idiot. I'm not. Gianna gestured with the gun. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of this house and disappear. Dominic will go back to being the man he was. The king of this city. My husband in name. Powerful and feared. And eventually, you'll become a story he tells himself on lonely nights. The girl who almost made him soft, and if I don't leave, then I'll make you leave, one way or another. Dominic moved between us, his expression lethal. You threaten her again, Gianna, and marriage or no marriage, I'll put a bullet in you myself. Would you? Gianna's smile was bitter. We both know you won't, because if you kill me, you start a war with my family. And unlike Constantine, my family has the resources to actually destroy you. The standoff was suffocating. I could feel the tension, the impossible choices, the weight of 2 worlds colliding. Stop, I said quietly. Both of you just stop. I looked at Dominic, at the man I'd fallen for, who'd shown me vulnerability and strength and passionate devotion, who'd also lied to me by omission, who'd let me believe we could have a future when his past was still shackled to him. You should have told me, I said. The moment you felt something for me, you should have told me about her. I know. His voice was raw. And I'm sorry. God, Arya, I'm so sorry. But please don't let her destroy what we have. What do we have, Dominic? Really? I wrapped my arms around myself. A few weeks of chemistry and violence? Declarations made in crisis? That's not a foundation. That's not real. It is real. You know it is. I don't know anything anymore. I looked at Gianna. If I leave, will you let him live? I have no reason to kill him. He's more useful alive. Then I'll go. The words tasted like ash. Whatever this was, it's over. No. Dominic grabbed my arm, his grip desperate. No, you're not leaving. We'll figure this out. I'll handle Gianna. You'll what? Get a divorce that could take years? Start another war? Risk everything again? I pulled free of his grasp. I'm tired, Dominic. I'm tired of the violence and the secrets and the impossible choices. I'm tired of not knowing if I'll wake up tomorrow or if someone will decide I'm too much of a liability. So that's it? You're just giving up? I'm not giving up. I'm choosing myself for once instead of choosing you. The devastation on his face nearly broke me, but I held firm. If you ever cared about me at all, I whispered, you'll let me walk out of here. You'll let me go back to my life and you'll stay in yours, where you belong. You belong with me. No. My voice strengthened. I don't. I never did. We were just 2 lonely people who found each other at the wrong time in the wrong world, and now it's time to admit that. I turned toward the door. Arya. His voice stopped me one last time. If you walk out that door, I won't come after you. I'll respect your choice. But know this. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, and losing you will destroy me in ways Constantine never could. I didn't turn around. Couldn't, because if I looked at him, I'd break. Goodbye, Dominic. I walked out into the cold morning air, leaving behind the man who'd taught me that love could be as dangerous as any weapon. And as I walked away from the safe house, from him, one thought echoed through my mind. Some stories don't have happy endings, they just end. Chapter 10. Ashes and Resurrection. 3 months later, I'd rebuilt my life with the precision of someone assembling a fragile house of cards. One wrong move, and everything would collapse again. New apartment across the city. New job at a different bakery, one that didn't have memories of him attached to every corner. New routines that didn't include late-night walks or scanning shadows for danger. I'd become ordinary again. Safe. Forgettable. And I'd never been more miserable. The nights were the worst. That's when the memories would surface. His voice, his touch, the way he'd looked at me like I was the only real thing in his world of illusions. I'd wake from dreams where we were back in that safe house, back before Gianna had shattered everything, and for one disorienting moment, I'd reach for him before remembering he wasn't there, that he'd never be there again. I kept tabs on him through the news. Couldn't help myself. Valente Empire restructures Mafia boss turns legitimate businessman Dominic. Valente donates millions to city charities. He was doing it. Everything he'd promised. Dismantling the criminal empire, going legitimate, becoming someone different. Without me to anchor him, without my naive belief that people could change, he'd changed anyway, and I'd missed it all because I'd run. The knock on my door came on a Tuesday evening. I wasn't expecting anyone. Hadn't made friends in this new life. Hadn't gotten close to anyone. It was safer that way. Lonelier, but safer. I opened the door. Isabella stood there, looking polished and professional in a business suit, her dark hair shorter than I remembered. "Before you slam this door in my face," she said quickly, "please just listen." My hand tightened on the doorframe. "What are you doing here?" "My brother is dying." The words hit like bullets. "What?" "Not literally. Not yet, but God, Arya, he's killing himself slowly. Won't eat, barely sleeps. He goes through the motions, the meetings, the negotiations, the charitable appearances, but there's nothing behind his eyes. He's a ghost. Isabella, I know you're angry. I know he hurt you, but you need to understand something. That marriage to Gianna, he dissolved it 2 days after you left, paid her family $20 million, and called in every favor he had to make it happen. It took 3 months of legal battles and negotiations, but as of last week, he's officially divorced. My heart stuttered. Why? Because you were right. He can't build a new life on the foundation of the old one. So he tore it all down. The marriage, the empire, everything. Thinking that if he became the man you deserved, maybe you'd come back. Isabella's eyes glistened. But you didn't. And now he's convinced he destroyed his whole world for nothing. Guilt crashed through me. I didn't ask him to do that. No, you asked him to be honest. To choose. And he did. He chose you, Arya. Even after you left, he chose you. She pulled an envelope from her purse. He doesn't know I'm here. Would probably be furious if he did. But I can't watch him fade away anymore. So here. She pressed the envelope into my hands. It's an address. He'll be there tonight, finalizing the last transfer of his territory to Antonio Ricci. After that, Dominic Valente, the Mafia boss, will officially cease to exist. She turned to leave, then paused. If you ever loved him, if any of what you felt was real, show up. Give him one more chance. That's all I'm asking. Then she was gone, leaving me standing in my doorway with an envelope that felt like it contained either salvation or destruction. Maybe both. I almost didn't go. Sat on my couch for 2 hours, staring at that envelope, weighing the cost of walking back into his world against the cost of walking away forever. Isabella had been right about one thing. What I'd felt for Dominic was real. Terrifyingly, devastatingly real. The kind of love that didn't fade just because you were angry or hurt or scared. The kind that haunted you. So at 10 p.m., I got dressed. Simple jeans, a black sweater, nothing special, and drove to the address Isabella had given me. It was the docks. Of course it was. where everything between us had begun to crystallize into something that felt like fate. I found him standing alone at the end of the pier, his silhouette dark against the city lights reflecting on the water. Even from a distance, I could see the change in him, the weight he'd lost, the way his shoulders curved slightly like he was carrying something too heavy to bear. My footsteps echoed on the wooden planks. He turned, and the shock on his face was worth every risk. "Arya?" My name was a prayer, a question, disbelief and hope tangled together. I stopped a few feet away, suddenly unsure. "Hi, what are you doing here?" Isabella came to see me. I held up the envelope. "She's worried about you. She shouldn't have bothered you." He turned back to the water, his voice hollow. "You made your choice. I respect that. Do you?" I moved closer. "Because I've spent 3 months respecting mine, and it's been hell." He went very still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I was scared. Overwhelmed. I just found out the man I loved was married, that our entire relationship was built on something that seemed like a lie. And I ran because that's what I do when things get hard. I run. You had every right to leave. Maybe. But I didn't have the right to give up on you without fighting first." I took a deep breath. "Isabella told me about the divorce, about everything you've done these past 3 months. I did it for me, not for you. Liar." The word was gentle. "You did it because I asked you to be honest, to choose who you wanted to be, and you chose to become someone better." He finally turned to face me fully, and the devastation in his eyes broke my heart. "It doesn't matter. I became that person too late. You're gone. I'm right here. For how long? Until the next secret surfaces? The next crisis? The next time my past comes back to destroy what we have?" His voice cracked. "I can't survive losing you again, Arya. It nearly killed me the first time. Then don't lose me." I closed the distance between us, my hands finding his. "Fight for me, for us, the way you've fought for everything else." "I don't know how." "Yes, you do." I looked up at him, willing him to see the truth in my eyes. "You showed me how when you sat in that alley accepting soup from a stranger. When you protected Isabella, when you stood between me and a bullet. You've been fighting for the people you love your whole life, Dominic. I'm just asking you to keep fighting now. Even though I lied, you withheld truth, which is different but still wrong. And you've spent 3 months making amends for it." I touched his face, feeling him tremble beneath my fingers. "Nobody's perfect. God knows I'm not. I ran when I should have stayed. I let fear make my choices instead of love. But if you're willing to forgive me for that, then I'm willing to forgive you for not being honest sooner. Arya." My name was a broken plea. "I love you," I whispered. "I love you angry and messy and complicated. I love you reformed and trying. I love all the versions of you, the monster and the man and everything in between. And if you'll have me, I want to build something real with you, not in spite of your past, but because of everything you've overcome." For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then his control shattered. He pulled me against him, his arms crushing me to his chest, his face buried in my hair. "I love you," he gasped. "God, I love you so much. I've loved you since you handed me that first sandwich and looked at me like I mattered. You do matter. Only because of you." He pulled back just enough to kiss me, desperate and claiming and full of 3 months of grief and longing. "I'm still going to mess up," he said against my lips. "I'm still going to have darkness in me. Days where the violence calls and I don't know if I can resist it. Then we'll figure it out together. No more running, no more secrets. Just us being honest even when it's hard. Together," he agreed, "always." We stood there on the dock, holding each other while the city breathed around us. This impossible, brutal, beautiful city that had brought us together and nearly torn us apart. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now?" He smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from him in months. "Now we live. We build something new. Something that's ours, not my father's legacy or the Empire's shadow. Just us. Where do we start? How about breakfast?" His grin widened. "I know this great bakery." I laughed despite the tears streaming down my face. "That's terrible, I know. But you love me anyway." "I really do." He kissed me again, softer this time, promising. Thank you, he whispered, for coming back, for giving us another chance. Thank you for being worth it. 6 months later, we stood in front of a small house on the outskirts of the city, far from his old mansion, far from the territories he used to control. It was modest, simple, exactly what we needed. This is it? I asked, squeezing his hand. This is it. What do you think? I looked at the man beside me. No longer the Mafia boss or the homeless stranger or even the ruthless killer. Just Dominic, complicated, loving, trying every day to be better than he was the day before. I think it's perfect, I said. He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my temple. We're really doing this. Building a life together. We really are. Inside, Isabella was already unpacking boxes. She'd moved in with us temporarily while finishing her law degree. Sophia stopped by weekly to check the security system and make sure old enemies hadn't resurfaced. And slowly, carefully, we were building something that looked almost normal. It wasn't perfect. Some nights Dominic still woke from nightmares, still flinched at loud noises, still carried the weight of everything he'd done. Some days I still wondered if we'd made the right choice, if love was really enough. But then he'd smile at me over morning coffee, or pull me into his arms while we cooked dinner, or whisper how much he loved me before falling asleep. And I knew. This was real, messy, complicated, forged in fire and darkness, but real. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.